In the U.S. state of Texas, the Board of Education is drafting its own version of American history. It's changing school textbooks to correct what they say is a left-leaning bias in education. Some say, though, the changes have religious and racial undertones. As Kimberly Halkett reports, the group's decisions could also have a major impact on how history is taught across the United States.
In some ways, Dr. Don McElroy is like any small-town dentist in the United States, except that when he's not fixing teeth, he says he's trying to fix everything he thinks is wrong with education in America.
You got two basic philosophies in education. One of them is the progressive type of philosophy, the modern education. Then there's the old traditional approach, and I'm a traditionalist.
McElroy has spent most of the last decade trying to correct what he calls a liberal bias in Texas education. As a member of the state school board, he has the power to do it. Texas is one of the few U.S. states where school board members can dictate what goes into textbooks.
Oh, we're not revising history. We're trying to get a balance to history.
Opponents disagree and say McElroy and his fellow Christian conservatives are using classrooms as a new front in a culture war over race and religion. At a March state school board meeting, McElroy and like-minded members pushed through more than 100 revisions in the subjects of economics, history, and sociology, all without consulting a single historian during the course of their deliberations. Instruction could now downplay the historical separation of church and state, eliminate all references to American imperialism, and remove any mention of the Hispanics that fought and died on the American side in the Texas War of Independence against Mexico. What's decided here in the Texan capital probably wouldn't matter much to most Americans, except this state is the country's second largest textbook market. That means that the conservative content established here could serve as a template for books sold all across the United States.
Ultimately, we just want a fair and accurate depiction of Latinos and of the history of Texas and the United States. We want to take the politics out of the situation and just rely on the facts.
The fact is, in Texas, minorities, predominantly Hispanics, now outnumber whites, making perceived disregard of Hispanic history all the more controversial among educators.
We can talk about that we were prominently a Western European country in the beginning, but we're certainly not that now. And it is impossible for us to continuously frame it through one viewpoint.
Texas has America's largest rural population. It's areas like these that tend to favor Christian conservative values, which is why McElroy believes he has the support of his fellow Texans.
What we're seeking in the social studies is just good historical accuracy and to provide balance and to remove bias.
In May, the proposed changes become permanent, pending a final vote that is expected to pass. And the state's new take on American history could become a foundation for history instruction all across the United States. Kimberly Halkett, Al Jazeera, Austin, Texas.
Some of the changes to the social studies curriculum passed by the Texas State Board of Education seem like small tweaks to language. If the changes are approved, when Texas students study the Cold War, for example, Soviet expansion becomes Soviet aggression. Instead of discussing global institutions such as the United Nations and NATO, the new language would have students, quote, evaluate the pros and cons of U.S. participation in international organizations and treaties, end quote. And one of the founding fathers of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, is to be removed from a list of Enlightenment thinkers. Jefferson, a noted secularist, was one of the authors of the Declaration of Independence. For more on the textbook dilemma, we're joined by Kristen Admonson in Atlanta. She's a communications manager in the education sector. What's so wrong about this? Isn't history, by its nature, a fluid affair? Interpretations do differ as to past events.
Well, Shihab, I think there are nonetheless some things that are simply true or not true. Thomas Jefferson, in fact, was an Enlightenment thinker, and I think that the people who fought the revolutions in both the United States and in France would tell you that they were influenced by Enlightenment ideas. Removing those from a history textbook does not make them any less true. And I think what people are really concerned about, those of us who don't live in Texas, is that the inaccuracies that are in the Texas textbooks may very well show up in textbooks that are read in other parts of the country.
Right, explain
now,
that.
we in Virginia...
No, go ahead.
We in Virginia... we in Virginia take the protection of Thomas Jefferson's role in the American Revolution rather seriously, as you might imagine.
But how will it affect other states?
Texas is a unique market because they're a textbook adoption state. The State Board of Education adopts a single textbook that is used in all of the Texas school districts. And simply by their sheer size, they often influence what textbook publishers put in the textbooks that they then market to other places. I think the hubbub over this latest round of changes in Texas may very well mean, and I know it will mean in Virginia, that we will say, is this the book you're using in Texas? We don't want that.
Oh, so might this hubbub backfire on the Board of Education in Texas then?
Well, one could only hope. I do think that it should be a matter of real concern. Texas, as I say, is unique in many, but local communities, because in many places textbooks are adopted either school district by school district or in some cases school by school. So if parents are concerned about this, they certainly need to get involved the next time their school district is adopting social studies textbooks so that they can make sure.
What do you make of the timing though of the Texas board's changes? I mean, presumably there have always been conservatives on the boards of education who've asked for changes. Is this linked to the general level of political discourse in the United States right now?
I think it's simply that they're on cycle to do this. You do it, I'm a former school board member, and the adoption of textbooks is both so painful and then subsequently so expensive that you only do it about once every 10 years. Actually, I would point out that Dr. McElroy has lost in a Republican primary, if you can imagine being too conservative for Texas Republicans.
Kristen Amundsen, thank you very much for your analysis.